What's going on, guys, and welcome to S&A Auto Repair. So I'm actually going to post this on Facebook and YouTube, so stay tuned. It is a Toyota 4.7 liter that I'm doing a timing job on. And I made mistakes, and I'm going to show my mistakes because I think that's what good mechanics should do. I did not film the process of me completely ripping it down, but I will film the process of me putting it back together. That I'm hitting right there is the water pump. So you can see there's a lot of goop everywhere, and now I'm popping that water pump off. There's goop on everything. Now there's supposed to be goop on that rectangular flange right there, but that's it. There shouldn't be goop where there's O-rings and all that other stuff. There was oil and coolant everywhere. This water pump's been leaking pretty good. It's a timing driven water pump. That's why we're doing the timing job. So I just sprayed it off with brake cleaner, hit it with some air real quick, and just tried to clean it off the best I could. So I'm going to go ahead and pop off that O-ring, and that right there explains why there was so much goop on there. So somebody previously went through the trouble, instead of just replacing the O-rings, of gooping everything up. Just replace the O-rings when you do the water pump. It's not that deep. I'm using some white lithium non-corrosive grease. I'm going to lube that up really good now, as you can see. I'm going to go ahead and pop that water pump back in place. I am doing a voiceover for anyone wondering because I've done this job over 2 days. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and throw all these new pulleys on. I got all new pulleys, all new timing tensioner, all new timing belt, and all that. And soon you're about to see my mistake. Look at these timing marks as I'm setting them up. Now, I did turn the engine to top dead center before I started the job. And you would think on the belt where it says L cam and R cam that it would go to the left cam and the right cam, and then you just set your mark on the bottom for the crankshaft. Well, you'd be wrong. So this is on me, because I did not read the directions for this particular timing belt kit. They want the arrows facing away from the engine, and if you don't put it on that way, you'll actually end up being a couple notches off on the timing, and you'll see that when we put the crank pulley back on, I'll be off about 10 degrees or so. So I'm just putting everything back in place. There is a little ring gear that you got to put on after you put the timing belt on. It holds the timing belt kind of in place, and also that's what your crank sensor down there reads off of. Putting the covers back in place, and with the magic of editing and me being really wicked awesome with this thing, it's done. See that? How cool is that? I'm hooking up all the wiring and all that. You see your cam sensor for that right camshaft. Notice I said right camshaft because it's on the right side of the engine. Pops through that little hole. There's a little grommet that holds it in place. That's going to be your your tensioner. These bolts right here go through the cover and then through the water pump. A lot of the way this is, everything's tied together in that way. You can't have one without the other. If you were to try to put that together without the cover, it wouldn't work. The bolts would be too long. It's kind of interesting, really. I will say the 4.7 is probably one of the best V8 engines Toyota produced, and the only reason they got rid of it was due to emissions. Anyways, that's the water neck right there. Called the dealer. They said it doesn't exist and that I was crazy when I was looking for gaskets. But good news, O'Reilly had the gaskets on the shelf. So went ahead and got some new gaskets. Even though I didn't have to replace them, I was right there. Also, when you replace the water pump, it does come with a new O-ring that goes on that left side there. You see the O-ring right there. They also covered in goop instead of just replacing the O-ring. So I went ahead and cleaned that off. That rectangular flange, I'm just showing you the process of putting this together. You do want to put a nice bead of some gasket maker around that and then lock it down. And I did that, and then I cleaned it up accordingly. I'm going to go ahead and throw the throttle body on now. The throttle body has a couple of coolant lines going to it, and you see that air line right there I snapped off because that's what happens with these old engines. Over time, the rubber lines turn to hard plastic. So I went ahead and fixed that. Don't forget to put on your throttle body gasket because that'll be a mistake you don't want to find out about. I'm going to go ahead and put that on there, torque it down, and you could see, hold up, give it 1 second, Jesse. You're ahead of the game here. You could see that piece of rubber hose I was trying to get off was basically plastic. So I went ahead and just replaced it with a hose. It's just an air hose. It's not a big deal. so it doesn't have to be anything special. Now, thermostat installation. For anyone knowing, I've never made this mistake because I'm perfect. You always want to put spring towards the block. That's very important, because if you put it in a way where the spring is not towards the block, on some vehicles you can actually do that, you will have an overheating issue, and you'll constantly replace that thermostat, and you'll never know the problem. The spring always goes towards the block unless the manufacturer specifies otherwise. So I went ahead and put on my little coolant crossover pipe there. It goes down to the oil cooler, bolts up in those two spots. That top of that line uses the timing cover nut there to hold it down, and just a couple of coolant hoses, no bigsy. And I am going to install the alternator now. The alternator, you just unbolt it in the power steering, and it just slides forward out of the way, and you can just drop it down out of the way. Disconnect the battery, or you'll be in for a shocking experience when that thing grounds out. I don't know from experience, you do. So there's a couple of 14 millimeter nuts that hold it in place, and then a little 12 millimeter nut right there. You have to put the idler pulley on first, by the way, or the alternator won't fit in place properly. It fits over the idler pulley. That's why so many things have to come out of the way. So here we are. I'm going to torque it down for you, and I'm going to show you the power steering as well. There's a stud that the power steering slides onto, and then there's a bolt on top and a bolt on the bottom. I'm trying to point out the holes there, but it's hard to see, but there's the bolts. You're welcome. And yes, like I said, 14 millimeter for all that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and torque that down to factory specs, of course. I was also replacing power steering lines on this setup as well, and some coolant hoses in the back, but I'm not going to show any of that because that's pretty cut and dry, honestly. I just don't see a lot of people go super in-depth. I'm trying to go as in-depth as I can. You can see right here as I torque down that harmonic balancer, notice the 0 on the timing cover, and notice how the notch on the harmonic balancer was not lined up with the 0. It was about 10 degrees off, or about 2 notches. Also notice when I put on the water pump pulley, it wasn't secure, and that's because the fan actually holds the water pump pulley in place. So, yeah, I got this far. I got the fan all bolted down. As far as me putting the timing belt on backwards, that's on me. I did have to take it all back apart, you'll see shortly. But the rest of the process, putting everything back together, it's 100% the same process. So you can see I ripped it apart because I double checked my timing and I wasn't comfortable with it. And you see left cam, right cam. According to Toyota, the left cam is the driver's side and the right cam is the passenger side. Now you know. Please don't make the same mistake I did. It's hard to see down here when I spin this over, but I've got it all lined up properly now. And when I did put it all back together and get that harmonic balancer back in, after wasting a few more hours of my life that day, everything was top notch. Everything was timed properly. So I've got everything back together now. There's those coolant hoses I replaced. They were leaking pretty good. They also turned into hard plastic. I'm going to go ahead and get this thing started. We'll see if you can hear it. It did start up no problem. If you heard me grunt there or make a weird elephant trumpet noise, it's because I slammed my ankle harder than you could imagine on a toolbox as I was getting into the vehicle. It hurt real bad. It still hurts right now, and it's a day later. So, life be lifing sometimes. The engine light is on due to I think an ambient air temperature sensor or something. I plugged it in. I cleared the code later on. It's still there. Ain't nothing to do with what I did, but it is what it is. Other than that, just wanted to show you how smooth this engine is purring, and it is purring like a kitten. Went ahead and put a plastic utensil up there. The engine's currently running, as you can see, and it didn't fall off. And I don't know where you're from, but that's great. Have your Rolls Royce beat that. Anyways, for all the cat lovers out there, here's a bunch of newborn 1-week-old kittens doing ninjutsu. If you enjoyed this video and it helped out at all, please like, share, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. So thank you for watching.